Welcome to the Prime Health Podcast with your host, Dr. Derek Barron. Dr. Barron interviews doctors, wellness experts, and healthcare leaders who are revolutionizing how we approach health and longevity. The Prime Health Podcast explores breakthrough science, personal and patient stories, and practical insights that are shaping the future of health and wellness. So sit back, listen in, and prepare to transform how you think about your path towards Prime Health with Dr. Barron and his special guest.
Welcome back to the Prime Health Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Derek Barron, and I'm here to bring you cutting-edge insights and practical strategies from the leading healthcare experts for your journey to Prime Health in both life and business. Now, here's what I want you to think about before we start. Heart attacks do not start in the moment. They've been building quietly for years. By the time someone reaches the ER, you're not seeing the beginning, you're actually seeing the final chapter. But our guest today, Dr. Kenneth Ro of Back in the Game Men, is going to make you think about what if we could go back and intervene before the ending ever happens. So if that sounds interesting, stick around because I want to hear part of that story as well. But before we jump into the episode, I have a quick message from our sponsor, and that's Grow Solutions, where we believe brilliant healthcare professionals shouldn't have to choose between patient care and practice and business growth. We handle the business side so you can focus on what you do best. Grow Solutions is not an agency or a vendor. We are your growth partner. And we take a diagnostic approach to your business where we look to find if there's time, money, leads, or opportunities that may be leaking. We help eliminate stressors in the business such as new patient or client acquisitions, marketing and growth strategies, reducing operational chaos with proven systems, frameworks, and SOPs. And yes, we even help you with those AI systems and robots because they're coming for us whether we like it or not. So if you've ever thought this to yourself, I'm too busy to grow, I'm too slow to scale, or I'm too overwhelmed to fix it, we are your growth solution. So drop the word free in below if you want us to reach out to you, or feel free to ping me on any of the social sites. But you came here for a reason, that's to meet our amazing guest today. Again, Dr. Kenneth Ro, welcome to the Prime Health Podcast, and please tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here, Derek, and thanks for the invitation. I've enjoyed meeting you. So I'm Dr. Rowe. I'm an ER doctor. I've been practicing emergency medicine for over 35 years. And in the ER, I've seen over 170,000 patients. I've seen, men and women who come in with predominantly tragic endings, heart attacks, strokes, major trauma. That's what we do in the ER, but we also see everybody else. But those are the ones that we're trained to see predominantly. Several years ago, I started asking different questions, like, how did this ever happen? Or what got this person to this point? And I really started a quest after my own health journey, maybe about 8 years ago, to really say, what can we really do to truly have prevention? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. In this case, it's probably worth a ton. And where did this actually start? So, my engineering brain and scientific brain started to reverse engineer things as well. And so I'm seeing my 50-year-old gentleman with a massive heart attack. His life, his trajectory, and his family's life has completely changed. But what's been going on under the hood for the past 10 or 20 years? Is this something that there was a trajectory that got, I don't want to say missed, but it didn't get addressed when this man was in his 30s and his 40s. How can we apply what we know now to try to really impact someone's health in a positive manner to try to prevent these tragedies from happening? And what sort of interventions are we looking at, and what time frame what's the sweet spot? So, through my research and through my practice now, I've really found that it's the gentlemen in their late 30s, 40s, who are undergoing massive amounts of chronic stress and having the triple caretaker effect, as I coined it. You're taking care of kids, you're taking care of maybe aging parents, you're also trying to take care of yourself. It's that part, the sandwich in the middle, that doesn't get taken care of. So consequently, we hear about a midlife crisis. It's not a crisis. The crisis is a consequence. And the consequence ends up being too often, cardiovascular disease is still the number one killer in the Western society, and certainly in the US. So how much of this is preventable and how much of this was an unforced error? And you have to really backtrack several years to kind of understand the answer to that question.
Yeah. Well, Ken, when you said 170,000 patients, that's amazing. Just think about, like, even if even with the knowledge that you have now, it would be difficult to go back there with every single one of those patients. But that background that you've taken from that to help you, create your own method that we'll talk about here shortly, I think has been beneficial for others to have had the problems, for you to be able to help people in the future so they don't. And when you say the massive heart attack, a very, very good friend of mine just 2 weekends ago ended up, having a heart attack, mild heart attack. He had a stent placed in, and never would have thought that. He likes his cookies and ice and milk at night. And he's saying, maybe I should take that out of the plate, but he only had to have one put in. So it's a good situation. And those that appear to be in good health on the outside, they look good. They're not always that way. So I think that your method that we'll discuss is going to help find that for them. So I appreciate the stress you went through for 170,000 patients to help your patients moving forward, which is great.
I appreciate you mentioning that, Derek. I mean, it's just one of those things where I could have just been the twilight of my career. It's like being an ER doctor is something that's very, it's very intuitive for me at this stage. And but something really nagged me to say, hey, you need to do something else. You need to do something more. It's great that you're here to treat these tragedies. But, why don't you really zoom out and maybe perhaps try to prevent some of these from happening? Yeah. And, back in the 1980s, when I was in medical school, we had preventive medicine. It was a legitimate field. Mm-hmm. It was well funded. It was something that was a viable option. But ever since the 90s, when we started changing the trajectory, changing into ICDs, RVUs, we essentially changed how it was reimbursed. And so because of that, it just went on the slide. Now we treat, we have safety nets for kids. We also have safety nets for age 65 and above. But it's that midlife that I really focus on, that is really what I consider medicine's biggest blind spot. The time that we can really step in and affect the trajectory of disease, but we just don't, because we don't have a diagnosis yet. We're not following trends. We wait for something to happen. So we tend to be reactive in medicine, and why not be more proactive? And I think there's a good trend in medicine right now, but it's going by so many different flavors that a lot of times it's tough to really kind of merge everybody together and say, hey, let's huddle up. We're all looking for the same endpoint. We're all looking to get healthier and more vital, but we're starting to fall into these longevity medicine, lifestyle medicine, integrative medicine silos, and we really need to be working together. So that's one of my missions, is to really kind of, for the general public, to kind of synthesize all the good things that are kind of in these splinter groups, and really be able to present medicine in a way that's, that makes sense, rather than bits and pieces that you might get from all these other different, almost specialties and subspecialties.
Yeah. Too many specialties take on a whole new role that in the hospital setting, they like it because there's more money that goes through each door when it comes in. But outside of that, most people they're in the integrative lifestyle or regenerative medicine are stepping away from that. So I like the way that you're looking to play on that. But I want to jump back. So if all your years as an ER physician, what did you personally, like you said, you had your own self-impacted, event that took place, but what were you noticing in patients or in yourself that changed how you really started to view healthcare?
I was noticing that our approach to health was very passive. It was one of those where we kind of looked at the life expectancy and said, okay, well, we're going to all live, we're going to live to be 80. That's great. But after the age of 40 or 50, everybody was kind of leaning towards the technology. Well, there's going to be a pill for that. There's going to be a surgical procedure for this. So, I'm just going to have my stent. I'm going to be on my statin. I'm going to be on my metformin. You name it, everybody's going to be on it, right? And this is kind of the way it is. And you kind of fall into a large peer group where everybody you're around, everybody says that it's the five people that are around you that are going to influence you the most health wise. And you just fall amongst that peer group, and everyone is kind of falling in the same boat. Everybody has a chronic disease, taking medication, talking about going to see a different specialist or their next doctor appointment. And everybody's getting care that's just either splintered or just not enough sequencing going on. You see one doctor for 1 year, and then he signs off on your case and just says, well, we'll see you next year. That's just not addressing the trajectory enough. I mean, it's just like we're on this GPS that's pointing you in the wrong direction, but we're just not really thinking enough in real time to say, hey, maybe I'm on the wrong course here. I'm going to end up in the wrong place. And the wrong place is seeing me in the ER. So what can we do differently to kind of, that was just a burning desire for me. I would see time and time again in the ER, this is something that shouldn't have even come in the ER. This was a unforced error, be it the gentleman who comes in with the massive heart attack, which is classic, or the 80-year-old frail woman that was just taking out her trash and literally got blown over by the wind and comes in with a hip fracture. These are all unforced errors, in my opinion. This is just a lack of resources and a lack of dedication to the time in life where you could really make a change. And so what do we need to do to kind of shift that balance into something that's going to make more of an impact? Because, let's face it, we're reactive, we're treating diseases. And honestly, hip fractures, strokes, heart attacks, they are good payers, unfortunately.
Yeah.
DRG is quite high. It's good from a business model. And I think because of that, we're lacking the prevention side and this common sense side of medical care. And we want to kind of get back to that.
Yeah. I think it's a great point. To the day of old where your physician would come to your house and take care of you, and then take care of your wife, and then take care of your kids, where you really took the time. Time has been taken away. Money's been such an influence in it. Pharmaceutical companies are a big influence. It's not that medicine doesn't have a play, because it does, but there are so many ways in which you don't have to get to the edge of the diving board and say, I don't want to go backwards, and I'm afraid to go forwards. And I think that's what you'll do with that. And probably a lot of the people that you deal with, and you deal mainly with, the male perspective, that the men that you deal with. So when you've dealt with a lot of these people, they're going through, like what I was reading is you said something about a midlife decline. Could you explain a little bit about what you mean with men in their midlife decline?
Well, I think a lot of it is unfortunately expected. One of the things I always say is aging is inevitable, but decline is optional. And unfortunately, I think we've kind of normalized decline, accepted it. We have accepted chronic disease, and we don't really have enough energy or resources to kind of fight back against it. When I was growing up, one of my idols was Jack LaLanne. Yeah, and for somebody that just broke the ceiling for aging, just an amazing man. And instead of saying, well, I could never be Jack LaLanne, I don't have his genetics, I don't have his drive, I don't have his willpower or motivation. Just stop, because he kind of increased the ceiling on what human potential is really about. And what I see in the midlife is that, it's people chalk up their lack of exercising or sleeping to willpower and motivation. And nothing could be further from the truth. What the body wants is the body wants homeostasis. So if you're going to present an input to your body, it's going to take it and say, okay, every day I'm going to create a new normal. And that if that new normal heads towards gaining weight, feeling anxious, having brain fog, having sleep fragmentation, then your body is going to want that. I mean, that's why when people lose weight, they have a very difficult time maintaining that weight loss. GLP-1s. I mean, we're just now finding out that, what's our endpoint in stopping these medications, because it's the bounce back is pretty impressive, unfortunately. Yeah. And that's the body's homeostatic set point. It's like, hey, wait a minute. I was 50 pounds heavier before you started this medication. Now that you're off the medication, I want to get back to my 50 pounds heavier, because that's the set point. That's the normal that we created over the years. You and I, we had this deal, right?
Yeah, Ken,
so
that's a great point when you say the set point, because it's like truly our body has an internal thermostat. And as you're saying, that set point is the temperature drop below 72 or 67, whatever it's set at. And what is it supposed to do? It's programmed to go back to that level, which you're speaking of.
That's exactly right. Our body is built for two things. It's built for survival, and it's also built for homeostasis. So anything that interrupts that, the body is going to fight tooth and nail to make sure that we're staying on the same course. The only problem with that is a lot of times the course is that decline. And that is not, that is not the usual. That can be modified. But I think the issue is that most people kind of have culturally and also they've just grown to accept that.
Yeah.
And nothing could be further from the truth.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately. So again, Ken, your clientele is high performing men for the most part, executives, leaders. What do you think that from the majority that you reach out to, what are they personally struggling with? Like, what's their target that you see? Is it consistently the same? Is there variations?
I think it falls very consistently. And the reason that I chose a niche to work with initially, because it's always a comfort factor to work with people that you can resonate with, that you've walked the same path, or they're going to walk the same path with you. So essentially you can be a guide. But it always boils down to something that's very, very telling, pretty much every time. There's an identity crisis that goes on as a man goes into midlife. I think David Brooks wrote The Second Mountain, very elegant book talking about this, where you have a certain identity. And with men, the identity is very, very important. Also tied into the ego, also tied into masculinity. So there are certain things that if you're a guy and if you're a proud carrying holder of a man card, that you are going to maintain that same level of either toughness, stoicism, not letting things bother you on the outside when it's really eroding you on the inside. So what I'm getting at is you have a certain identity that you create for yourself when you're in your 20s after college. And then you're in this phase of accumulation and becoming successful, being a provider. And that stays with you quite well until you're about 40. But things start happening at that time, physiologically and also mentally, where you start questioning that identity. Is this going to maintain? Is this appropriate for the phase of life that I'm in right now? And I've found that men who are successful, and when they're talking about successful, we're talking about professionally, financially, they're successful with providing. And the operating system that they use to create that success is changing. Now you're taking care of children. Now you're being a responsible member of your community, a responsible husband, also a brother or uncle, a son. And that's where the calculus changes. That's where you have to stop thinking about accumulation, providing, and, quite frankly, economic status, into something that's a little more expanded, something that's more into the realm of purpose, curiosity, and things that kind of you're not programmed to do. You have been programmed to run these sprints, and all of a sudden now you have to look at running a marathon. Totally different training, right? But trying to make that natural change in midlife is very, very difficult for most men. You're talking about being able to take an insight and go against your strong suit and your strengths, and to start investigating something else. I mean, you're getting way out of your comfort zone, and you try all these things to try to not do that, to not really grow, to not climb that second mountain. And so there's this huge amount of resistance, procrastination, to not want to do this other mountain, because you're already looking at the top of the first mountain and saying, hey, I've made it, right? I'm successful. I'm here. And then you realize, wait a minute, there's another challenge here in front of you that you need to start from square one, rip away your ego, swallow, have a big dose of humble pie, and climb up the second mountain. So that's very difficult for a lot of guys to do. And in my practice, that's something that we really talk about first, right from the get-go. Let's talk about your identity. What makes you tick? Who are you? And once we start breaking that down, this is another challenge. You can use the same skill sets that you had for this first mountain, but you can take it and climb this other one in a very fulfilling way. And once you get that up to that second one, then all of a sudden, everything that you accomplished with the first mountain has not gone away. You're just adding on to who you are. And that makes you more of a complete person, because we all go through that. We sit there and go, is this all, this is it? Yeah. Are we just getting older? Are we challenging ourselves to, attain something else? So we all go through that. And that's kind of what my practice is all about. Also, what we're doing is we're increasing capacity. We're also taking away things that might be causing you to not have that kind of capacity, that sort of energy, that kind of mojo that you are used to having. And I think the biggest fallacy is that I'm never going to get back. I'm not where I am when I'm 30. I'm not going to have the energy when I was 20. But something, Derek, you're going to have something different. You're going to have something that's potentially even better. You're going to have wisdom and crystallized intelligence and pattern recognition. These are all great things to have. And, it's only when you take examination of your lived experience that you can get to that second mountain. So that's something that we talk about extensively in my practice.
Yeah. I like the second mountain analogy that you have, that, everybody, life was a mountain to climb. And as you're saying, that midlife decline, they hit that one peak. But the good thing is that you got up on top of the first one. You might go down in certain ways, systems and issues in life, or symptoms from the inside out, heart-wise, brain-wise, function-wise. But that you just have to take a different approach to then climb back on the other side of it. So there's a lot of things that men, I'm sure, both women as well, I don't want to classify that they can't do that or they don't have that same struggle, but there's a lot of stuff that men don't say up front to you right away. You have to build a lot of trust with them in order to break down that barrier of the ego that you said in that bravado, to get them to open up about their life and just be honest with me. Are you struggling? First conversation, they're not going to admit to it. As you build that trust, the second it will. And then that opens the door for the tools you provide to make that next climb easier.
That's exactly right. I mean, and the thing is, a lot of times too, is that I will, in my practice, I'll speak with the spouses as well, because, it's just one of those, it's something that they've seen for years, and it's like the elephant in the room. It just didn't get addressed, or it's going to get addressed later. Right. But I can tell you that it's one of those things where when a man gets in another room with other men and we start discussing things, that all that armor starts coming off, all that ego starts coming off, all that machismo starts coming off. And then we can just kind of just talk from our guts and kind of share that, yeah, we're all struggling with the same issues. And once you get down to that intense authenticity, then it just flows like a river or Niagara Falls. It's just crazy what guys have been holding in for so long. And when you finally crack into that armor, that you can finally reveal what's been going on the inside. It's very gratifying when you kind of see that, shift.
Yeah. Completely different experience than in the ER fixing somebody's fracture than when you fix a fractured life. Completely
Yes,
different
exactly.
approach to it. And I love how you bring in the spouse, if there is one involved, to be able to help.
A lot of times too, it's the spouse and the kids, particularly the teenage kids that see it. And, what's going to get inside a man's head and inside a man's soul, it's not going to be, a lot of times it's not going to be the conversations with his spouse. But when he starts having some conversations with his children, that's going to resonate.
Yeah.
I mean, trying to break through by any means possible is kind of the first step, right? I mean, if someone's not ready, then he's just going to be very resistant. But once he's ready and he starts opening up, then we can do some outstanding, some really good work.
Yeah. Yeah. Opening up is a big thing. So I want to bring this up. I want to be able to give you the ability to differentiate yourself. Seeing 170,000 patients as an ER physician is one for sure. I'm sure there are some that have done that, but that's a big number. But when it comes to the method, as I was reading up on, you have something called the reclaim method. And how is that method different than traditional method or the typical biohacking approach? How is the reclaim method for your clients unique to you?
Well, the reclaim method is a system, and it's a systematic approach. Of course, it's an acronym. The first part is identifying the root cause. The I is identity engineering, and the M is just continuous monitoring and kind of continuous educational course. But it's a system. It's one that addresses the root causes, and there are many different root causes. But if you don't address those first, then you're really not helping your patient.
Yeah.
And so there's an extensive amount of testing and also finding out from the patient. And once we uncover some of the foundational things that are holding him back, then we can start going into a systematic approach. And, I spent 8 or 9 years creating this method. A lot of it was, my own research. A lot of it was my own N of one, experimentation.
Sure.
But then when I decided I'm going to start branching this out to my friends and family and really understanding what worked, what didn't work, it was like constant trial and error, scientific method, until I finally came up with this method. And now I've been able to use this method for about a year. And I wrote about it in my book, Prime. And, it's really, it's, I love the way that it's named, because it just kind of, it's a full circle moment. What it really boils down to is that your best self was never outside of you to begin with. So everything that you were trying to pursue, it's a full circle. You just come back and realize you had all the tools all this time. You just weren't given either the data, the guidance, or the confidence to understand that everything that you needed to be was already within you. You had all the tools. So that's essentially the reclaim method in a nutshell. It's about finding out what was really within you all this time. I look at this as, obviously behind me, I love sculptures. I look at this as me being, or you being your own sculptor.
Mm-hmm.
You come up with this big slab of marble, and slowly you have to chip away, sometimes very, very slowly. But what's revealed to you after you've finished sculpting is who you are. You've always been embedded in this big slab of marble. It just took uncovering the layers to understand that this was you here all along. So that's essentially what we're doing when I use the reclaim method. You're reclaiming what was always already there, but for some reason it had been layered or something had happened, health, you name it, environment, lifestyle, something was always covering up who you really are, and it just needed to be sculpted away.
Yeah. Very interesting in how you make that statement. Something I was taught about art a long time ago is that if it's a painting or if it's a sculpture or something, the original is not what you see. The original was in the mind of the artist, and then they went on from there. So we believe we are our finished product, but every day there's a reiteration of it. And I'm sure when we have breakdowns in our body as we age, they can see a physician like yourself, and they can reclaim themselves, reclaim their health, reclaim many other things that you take them through in your method. So I really do like the approach of how you bring that about.
Well, I appreciate that you mentioned art, because that's one thing that one of my old professors in medical school that always stuck with me. He said, Ken, medicine is more an art than science. He goes, one of these days you're going to understand that. At that time, I didn't understand that, because you're heavily, as a medical student, you're completely enamored with the science, the scientific method, biochemistry, physiology, pathology. I mean, it's all science. But over the years, I've understood that it's more art than science. And the art of it is communication, understanding another person, understanding the human being condition, being compassionate. That's the art. And of course, there's listening, there's understanding nonverbal communication, but that's the art of medicine that I think these days maybe we've leaned against it because of technology and AI. But, there's a person there. And people aren't diagnoses or diseases. They're human beings. They're people with emotions and feelings and a story that's worth telling, because everybody has just a wonderful story. So I appreciate that you talk about medicine and approaching it from an artist's point of view, because I think that's something that's very, very helpful.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. But I appreciate you bringing up about the sculpture, because that reminded me of it. So Ken, in regards to your business itself, Get Back in the Game Men, what are you focusing on in your business right now?
So right now, and we just talked about this before the conference, before the call, I'm focusing on getting the word out to more people. I started with a niche. It's a very comfortable niche for me. But once again, I'm also taking what I've learned from the ER, which is another comfortable niche. And I really want to get this knowledge, information, this energy out to more people. So my Back to the Game Men, I'm going to and my reclaim method, I really want to expand that into webinars and e-learning courses, kind of some one-on-one time with me. If it's going to be over a video conferencing, then that's perfectly fine. But, I love my boutique practice. I put a lot of time into it. But I really feel like it's time now to kind of expand my horizons and really bring this out to more people, because people are just, in general, I think there's a lot of confusion out there, because there's just so much information, and it's so scattered. And there are influencers out there, obviously, that kind of get the headlines, and they're taking little studies that are maybe 12 people, and they're just extrapolating the data to say that, well, this is the answer for all your problems. So if you buy my supplement, then we can take care of this, in general. And it's just, as a physician, as a healthcare provider, I'm sure you're feeling kind of the same things. I'm just like, hey, we need some other voices out there that can really cut through all the noise and give you like a coherent signal. Because right now it's all static. The younger generation, they don't understand tuning a radio station like we do. Right now it's all static, but we want to be able to kind of adjust the frequency to where you have something that's very cohesive, that's a strong signal, and that's based in science, and real world data and real world experience. So I want to make sure that we get back to that. So I want to really expand my mission to include as many people as possible. Anyone that I can help, reach out to. That's my mission now.
Yeah. And that's good. I there, you had said something, I don't remember the exact phraseology that you said, Ken, but it was kind of like you could go out into the twilight of your life. But the truth is, if you did, you can live your life however you wish, and that's great for you. But you have this method and you have the knowledge. And if you didn't keep pushing this forward, there's some patient that you're going to help at some point in time that would have had an earlier demise had you not been there. So it's a stressful way to look at it, that in order for you to keep going means you're going to help the world in a bigger place. But that also puts stress on your shoulders too, that says, well, I've got to keep going to certain degrees. Boutique, keep it that way as much as you can, or touch as many people in different ways. But it's important that, you've got a message to spread. You've got the skills and the knowledge to do it. And more people are craving for your knowledge, your expertise.
Well, that's my burning desire, Derek. I mean, it's just like, what gets you out of bed in the morning. And, after a conversation that you and I had, that gave me a kind of an aha moment, because I was always thinking, I can do webinars and I can do some expansion, but I'm an ER doctor and I'm very comfortable in my field. And it's just like, you go through all that stress in the ER, you come back home, you just unwind it, you compartmentalize it. And, but now it's like, hey, you really, if you need to get yourself out there, then so be it. Get yourself out there. You already put yourself out there in the ER. Yeah. So if people really need your help and this is going to fulfill you and other people, then, you just have to get out of your own way and just reach out, because it's going to be beneficial. And that to me is very rewarding. And like I said, that's the burning desire. That's what gets me out of bed.
Yeah. Well, Ken, I'd love for you to share a success story of somebody that's worked with you, whether it's been a male executive or a high achiever, but what have you done, whether it's, getting the game men or it's the reclaim method? What's that success story that you'd like to share with us?
Okay. So my success story would be probably my first official patient, and of course, not violating any HIPAA. He's not going to get any names, but, he was a former athlete. And a very, very good one. But, over the years, all the injuries, chronic pain, he had himself in a place where he was just saying, well, I'm 60 pounds overweight. I have plenty of money. I have a lifestyle, and it's very difficult to get back to health because I'm just very comfortable. I just don't know what to do. When I was playing professionally, I always knew what to do. I always knew the game plan. Everything was laid out for me. And then all my key performance indicators were always out there for me. And now in this game of life that I'm playing, I'm just trying to avoid having another surgery. But, I found you on a website. I'm very intrigued with your philosophy. So I'd love to start working with you. And, he was just so open, he was such an open book. But we were able to find a lot of root causes. A lot of it was his diet. A lot of it was his lifestyle. But a lot of it was his mindset and just accepting that, I'm just like some of my other friends and some of my other friends that have passed away. And also there was a genetic component as well. My parents didn't live until 50. They had heart attacks and strokes and cancer. So part of me is saying, well, I'm 51 and I'm living on borrowed time already. And so I was just like, no, first we have to do is we have to just we have to understand what the human body is capable of. I mean, you've already attained great success physically and mentally. And you still have that capacity within you. I had to go through a lot of obstacles there. He was just like, 20 years ago, before all my surgeries and before all this weight, I'm never going to get back to that. And so it was like, we're not trying to get back to that, but we're trying to get back to the best you that you can be. Slowly but surely, once we uncovered the root causes, he started sleeping. He started jogging again because his knees weren't inflamed. we started doing some things together. You know, it was like not a typical relationship. It was more of a guide. So we went to the gym together.
Right.
Uh, I don't say we played his sport together because he would kill me, but it was just like, but we went to the gym together and we became friends as well. So, you know, we had kind of a collaborative relationship. 6 months later, fast forward, he literally is playing pickup games again. Lost 60 pounds, gained about 10 pounds of muscle. And he was just unbelievably killing it in the gym. But the big thing was he was about to get a divorce because he just gotten to the point where he just was very apathetic about life in general, about his future. And so he wasn't putting his time and effort into into any of his relationships. That really started changing in within just a few months. And so here I see this person who I kind of like, I was a fan of 20, 30 years ago. And he's just blossomed into this person that's just that anybody in the community or his whole family members could be just proud of. His wife told me, you know something, Dr. Rowe, I just never thought that that person was in there. I met him 20 years ago, but he just drifted away. That was just so gratifying. And he was patient number one. So I was just like, you know something, there's always that doubt. You just sit there, well, I've laid all this out. It's worked for other people. But you know, my first official one, you know, I don't know, maybe it might not work for everybody and I have to accept that. But he was such a success story that, I mean, he's just now just a bundle of energy and he's taken the program and just really run with it. But all I gave him was a little nudge, you know, I just opened up his eyes. He was already open to it. And I just gave him some information and I guided him and he just ran with it, just unbelievably ran with it. So that's my story. I mean, I've had other success stories, but you know, you always kind of remember that first one.
Right.
Coming out of the ER, you know, my definition of success is keeping somebody alive. To my practice, where my definition of success is having someone understanding that he's alive. So two different endpoints, two different approaches, but you know, very fulfilling and satisfying on by the same token.
We're all going to get to that final endpoint at some point in time, but why not have somebody intervene like yourself, Dr. Rowe, to make those final years, or not just final, but many years, enjoyable? You know, and I'm sure that's what you brought to him and his family. I mean, that's trickled, you know, across a lot of people. That impacted, you know, his entire family, I'm sure.
And understanding that that's what you can achieve. You know, there's just so much in society that just says you have to accept a certain energy level or a certain amount of physical performance or mental performance or capacity when you're a certain age. Completely not true. Right. I mean, we've seen in neuroscience and neuroplasticity and, you know, how the body is just so adaptable if you're just able to give it some challenges or just trying to get rid of that, you know, all that programming in your own head that says, oh, I can't do it because I don't have the willpower or the motivation. Well, life is about action. You know, life is about making, you know, it's not even necessarily about choices. You know, you just create actions. They create your choices. You know, you can act your way into feeling, right? I mean, that's the way the body's wired. So it's about taking those actions and understanding that if you stack these actions over a certain period of time, then you will get this consequence and it'll be positive. And the flip side of that, if you don't do that, you're going to definitely get a negative consequence. So that's your choice. You know, are you choosing to be stronger, or are you choosing to be more vivacious every day? Or are you choosing the opposite? Because one way or another, you're going to be headed on, you know, you got a fork in the road and you want to be able to travel one path or the other. Invariably, you get to choose that path. Yeah. That's the empowering part of it.
Yeah. I like the inspiration and motivation of that story for sure. Just a few last questions here for you, Dr. Rowe. how can someone learn more about you? If they want to learn more about getting back in the game, men, or the reclaim method, where would you like to send them or direct?
Well, I have a central website. It's my name. It's www.kennethromd.com.
Okay.
Another good resource is my book, Prime: How to Win the Second Half of Life, and you can get that off Amazon, ebook and paperback. And also, Back in the Game Men is my practice. It's www.backinthegamemen.com. And so you can. I made the websites resource rich, quizzes. There's ways to get on email list where you can where I can give you some pieces of advice and words of wisdom in your weekly inbox. So check me out there.
I will make sure that we share those in the description below for sure, and all the places that we post this out. So a question here for you with the ER work that you did, and now with this reclaim method and the people that you're working with, could you give us one piece of advice that would help us all in a positive way?
Don't accept decline.
Ooh.
Like I said before, aging is inevitable, but decline is optional. Get to where you're fighting tooth and nail to say, hey, a better day is ahead of me because of what I did today. Mm-hmm. So you can take away that negative voice in your head and get with people who can help you and elevate you and be scaffolding for you to be your best self, because there are people out there that want to help you. So don't accept decline.
Yeah.
You can be better every day.
I like that. That's something that I'm going to listen to a few times, to not accept the decline. Thank you for that. Last question, Dr. Rowe. You've been a great guest here on the Prime Health Podcast. I ask everybody, what is your definition of Prime Health?
When you have a purpose and you have a North Star and you have the energy and also the support, and that you're also understanding that you aren't alone, that whatever you do is broadcast and transmitted to everyone around you. So if you understand that you're a conduit for goodness and kindness, then that's why you're here on this earth.
Thank you for sharing that with me. Again, two last pieces, not that there isn't a great amount of information through the whole podcast, but those two last pieces speak volumes to me myself. So thank you for sharing that. Dr. Rowe, you've been an extremely exceptional guest on here. You've got an amazing story from being an ER physician where you started, 170,000 patients, which I'm not sure how many people can really say that, but realizing that along the way, there was more to it, that those 170,000 should be less. I shouldn't have to see those many people. Granted, accidents do happen, but they declined on some sort, and they didn't have the motivation or the inspiration to keep them out. So thank you for that. I always tell people that Dr. Rowe is trying to get a message out. And as you can tell from what he shared, it's a great message. So we ask you to just share it with one person. Of course, we'd love with you to share as many as possible, but start with one person. If that's somebody you play pickleball with, you go out for coffee with, a family or a friend, share this message with them, because it'll change them. It's the ripple effect, the butterfly effect. One little piece changes a big effect for a lot of people out there. So I will say selfishly, I always do say, please subscribe to the podcast. We love more people to hear amazing stories like Dr. Rowe's, for instance. And until next time, remember that true wellness is a journey we are all on together. Whether you're taking charge of your own health or guiding others in theirs, every step forward matters. Please do stay committed to your Prime Health journey. And again, Dr. Rowe, thank you very much for being an amazing guest on the Prime Health Podcast.
Derek, you're very welcome. And this has been my pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you.